It's been a while since that's failed. Hmm. Hello everybody, welcome back as ever to Building Blocks, where we program Minecraft mods live on camera and watch as it all goes inevitably wrong. And case in point, there, I guess. Sometimes my Stream Deck decides to work perfectly, other times it skips a command. I don't know why, but bleh. Anyway, last time around we were working on species and all sorts, and we're going to be working a little bit more on that today, but we're going to start off with a little bit of a demo and a little bit of a discussion of things, because I had a talk with the Forge devs today, which is never a great start to a day, it has to be said, because they are very acerbic. And they kept asking why I wasn't doing something a specific way when I know a very great reason to not be doing it that way, so we'll be talking about that later. Anyways, here we are, blind, as ever, and I have done a little bit of poking about with the code here to identify various things. Evidently, I still need to figure... I still need to get actual beds rendering. You can sort of make them out, but we're just sort of seeing the crater around them only, which is not perfect, not grand. But previously we had some issues with rendering for this particular feature, which if you're not familiar, my character currently has the blind ability, or I guess disability, more strictly speaking, which means that the world doesn't render almost at all. But because blind is also built into at least one creature type, it felt somewhat mean to make it so that you had to basically have F3 open the entire time you were playing, so that you could identify exactly what it was you were looking at. So I added this rendering of blocks that we have recently looked at, by meaning of, like, glanced over with our block reach, like, actual cursor. Anything that we can see we can punch, essentially. Really do like how you decide to run this. It's not perfect. It does bounce around a bit, as you can see. Like, if I move around. Yeah. Which, personally, I actually kind of like. I kind of prefer that they're a little wibbly. It's like, this is meant to be essentially a visualization of what your character, like, remembers being there relative to where they just were. And that's always going to be a little wibbly. And it will probably not even be entirely accurate, but you never know. So yeah, there's that. And previously there were some issues wherein blocks would render on top of one another that weren't necessarily actually, like, correct, so a block further away would be rendering on top of one that was closer. I've done a bit of, like, upgrade to that, so it now actually, it has a specific order in which how it actually renders all the blocks it should be rendering. Namely that it goes from the furthest out from your camera points to the closest in, so it should, under pretty much every occasion, actually render properly. Okay, you're over this way? There we are. Okay, that's what I was looking for. So, for example, we have blocks over there, but they're not rendering directly in front of these ones that we also have, which is what we wanted to see, which is good. Also, if you have a bigger block reach, then you can actually see further when you're blind than this, which is also a neat feature, if you happen to have, for instance, the block reach ability enchantment on your armor, or some such. That's not in this mod, of course, but nonetheless. Where are we? Okay, this way? Should be... no? There we are, okay. So yeah, you can make your way around a lot easier now. You don't have to have F3 open, which is really good. I was hoping to fix it so that you could sprint. You can't right now. The reason for that is that you are given the blindness debuff as part of the blind ability, so that it can actually be identified by other mods as this person can't see. However lenient the blind status effect might seem compared to this, but oh well. And unfortunately, one of the little-known side effects of the blindness status effect is you cannot sprint and you cannot deal critical hits. Which is weird to me, considering how little of the world blindness actually conceals, but oh well, oh well. There's a couple of new abilities, I believe. So let me just remove blindness for a minute. Yeah, that's what you can see when you have actual blindness. Oh, so nice to be able to sprint again. Although apparently I still suck at parkour. There we go. Alright. So, let's see, we've got Etherealness, which is here, and that's new as well. We also have Ghost Form, or Gaseous Form, to be exact. These are different levels of incorporeality. So Gaseous Form is a lower level. You cannot pass through blocks, but you can pass through other creatures. Etherealness is an ability that basically is incorporeality plus. You can go through anything, more or less. Is blindness actually caused by anything in vanilla? You can make it with potions. I don't know off the top of my head anything that, like, inflicts it. It is there, but blindness potions are absolutely a thing. You can brew those. They're the inverse of a night vision potion. Etherealness is like incorporeality, but you can go through any block whether or not it has like an open side, and as long as it's not an unfazable block like bedrock, for instance. Then we also have Epic Resilience, which is more for my sake than anything else. And what this does is it basically limits the amount of damage that you can take from a single instance. So there's a soft cap data value to it, and there is a like hard cap to the end of it. It is literally the ability from the Ubervision, in short. So consequently, you can like use it to survive an attack from an ore spawn mob, for instance. I don't know if ore spawn's in 116. I hope not, but who knows. Very handy for mod packs with ridiculous power levels, essentially. Suspicious Stew can give it to you, as well as apparently the Unused Illusion mob. Okay, that's interesting to know. There's no way to make blindness potions without commands. There is absolutely a way to make blindness potions. Hang on. I'm certain of this. Let's see, let's see if we can get brewing stand. We're going to need blaze powder to power it, because I don't even in creative mode I don't get that for free. And we need a night vision potion. And a fermented spider eye, I think it is. There you go. That should make a blindness potion. No scoped. Or at least we'll find out, I guess, in a moment when that's done. What other but new abilities do we have? Let's have a see, shall we? Fast healing, I think we had last time. Yep, there it goes. Natural armor is new. That just adds to your armor bar. Weakness, no, that's strength you're thinking of. If we invert strength, then we get weakness. No, water walking might be new. Not that new though. Oh no, night vision turns into invisibility. Well, color me confused. There is not even a potion for it. Huh. Okay, yeah, I guess you can't make blindness potions. I could have sworn you could. Anyways, a lot of different mods use the blindness effect as a shorthand for being blind, so don't have a gaze attack work for whatever reason, if you're lucky. But obviously that doesn't work if our blindness is a completely separate thing, so I have to include the blindness effect into being blind, which then means all of the other things that blindness does, which are actually significantly more annoying. Could you have maybe done so in a mod pack in the past? Quite probably. I could have sworn. Yeah, I could have sworn it was night. I could have sworn it was night vision that turns into blindness, but apparently night vision turns into invisibility, which is an odd choice. But oh well. But okay, that is the major changes. There is one more, which is, well, firstly, climb is now actually a toggle. So if you if you're using the climb ability, you can now turn it off for your convenience. Nope, survival, that's the one I want. Okay, but I have also done some mixing to flight, so that you now actually turn into Elytra mode, which makes it way easier and a bit more, like, easier to control, I feel. So you essentially get a free Elytra, plus a bunch of rockets. It's a lot easier to control than just, like, bouncing, essentially. You do still get the low gravity when you're in this mode, so that you do descend at a lower rate. If I were to go really far up and come out of Elytra mode, we can see the gravity is still there. It is halved when you're in Elytra mode, so that you actually can move a bit more freely. But it is at its full strength if you are in sort of the hover state. So pretty handy, pretty comprehensive, I think. You can still take damage. I should make that. I should make that provision, that you are absolutely able to take falling damage whilst you're in the flying, as well as collision damage. That is, nothing has changed there. What happens when you have an Elytra on in this mode? Not a great deal, I imagine. I don't imagine anyone that has a flight ability will use Elytra, really. But hey, let's give it a test, why not? Nope, not an Elder Guardian spawn egg, thank you. So, plop. You have to have the flight ability on in order to actually engage that part, so let's see how these mix, shall we? Answer, not a whole ton. Works just normally. Yep. No worries. Alright. So, onto the thing. So I was having a problem with blindness being applied by the various equipment blindfold. There's a new version out on Curse, by the way, if you're looking to try that out. It does work now. Which was related to how events were just being fired and how handlers were being registered and whatnot. And when in order to get some advice on that, to try and figure out what was going on, or rather what was going wrong, I had to show the Forge devs the ability code. And this is very much in the fashion of the Forge devs, in that they will answer any question you don't ask, whether or not you requested such or no, or like otherwise. And in this particular case, they asked me why I wasn't using a cache for abilities. Why was I using things like Gather Abilities event, which is fired by the ability registry when we get all the creature's abilities? Why was I running this whole thing so frequently instead of caching it, so I only had to run it every so often? Well, firstly, a cache, if you're not familiar, is kind of like a net. You throw it out, you pull it back, and you depend on the things that are in the net staying there until you empty it and then toss it out and bring it back in, that kind of thing. You presume that the things in the net are going to stay the same. Very good if the things that are in the net don't change very often, or change under very specific circumstances. In the case of our abilities, however, you're kind of trying to put the ocean into the net. It's not going to work very well, because abilities are not just registry names. They have map names, which require their MBT data, so that we can have abilities override abilities, as well as having multiple instances of the same ability. And some of them, a great deal of them, in fact, are passive and don't change basically at all, like between people calling commands on them at least. And others change every single tick. An active breath weapon, for instance, changes its MBT data every single tick. So you have the MBT data changing every tick, which is necessary to figure out what the map name is, which is necessary to build the whole thing. So a cache would not work. What it would do, if we implemented one, is it would do one of two things. It would either mandate a specific interval of time on our abilities, rather than letting us have them every tick. It would have to be like every second or so on. Or it would introduce desynchronization in a very hasty manner, because if you, for instance, shift-clicked a blindfold on and off and on and off, then the server and the client could get quickly confused as to whether or not you actually have blindness. So, it's not that great. Now, there is an implementation that sort of works like a cache that we could use, which would be a matter of having a single map of abilities inside of probably the abilities in your entity data, and having an add and remove to that. So in the case of types, whenever types change, we can clear out all of the pieces from, all of the abilities from that particular type, and add in whatever new ones get added, that sort of thing. We would probably want to store them by origin, so you would have like abilities from your types, abilities from the creature, abilities from other sources, that sort of thing, just so that we can actually keep them separated and then just condense them down when they're requested. But that's a lot more complicated. And there's a lot more ways and a lot more data that we'd need to handle with that versus what we already have. Is this the most efficient theoretical system? Sure, no, but would a cache make it better? No, it really wouldn't, despite the insistence of the Forge devs. So, yeah, maybe I've built a system that I spent a week contemplating just how to build, and actually put some thought into it that they could get more so than just staring at a single GitHub file. Just as a thought. Just as a thought. Yeah, I wanted to rant about that. Because, like, I may be, like, 95% self-taught in programming, but I'm not an idiot. I do know my stuff, thank you very much. And yes, a cache is a good thing when you have big, bulky systems that are being, like, created. If they're being, like, referenced often, you want to use a cache ideally, but in this case, there are so many working parts that it would just be infeasible. Like, types, we can rely on types being relatively unchanging. Relatively. We can also similarly rely on the specific abilities of the entity and its species not changing very often either. It's when we get other things like the blindfolds involved that things can change a lot more frequently. And that's just in terms of what abilities you have. The actual MBT data of those abilities can change a lot. And we need to have the ability and the MBT data to know what its map name is. Or else every single ability has to be unique. So, yeah, it's complicated. This is genuinely approaching, at the very least, the greatest degree of efficiency I think it can. And unfortunately, much like with the room volume analysis of the changeling hives, after a certain point, efficiency doesn't change much. It's just low. Tea. Anyways. So today, we are working once again on species. So if we have a look at our species, this is one such example. We can convert it into JSON data, and we can create it from JSON data once again. And it is essentially, currently, a list of creature types. So humanoid, aquatic, or whatnot, as well as a list of abilities. As ever, these abilities have MBT data and they have to be stored as well, so we set that across quite happily. And of course the abilities here can override the ones here, because we have map names as well as registry names, so that we know, like, we know how to get the exact functioning of an ability, the registry name, and we know how to get the exact instance of an ability, the map name. Those are very important things, because otherwise, in order to have damage resistance fire versus damage resistance lightning, I would have to have a damage resistance fire and a damage resistance lightning class, rather than just reusing the damage resistance class. Yeah, it's a very important, there's a very significant reason that we have that. Anyways, we also have a couple of values up here, where a player can select it, as well as its relative power. You can think of that being sort of like the level adjustment in Dungeons & Dragons. And this is related to later, when we will actually have the species selection screen. When players log in, there will be a value in the world's data that you can say, like, yes, display this screen, and it'll give you, like, resistance 5 for, like, 20 minutes or something. And you'll be displayed a screen where you can select a species from all the ones that are in the server, basically. Which will essentially bring us to the point where we're effectively Origins Plus. Just bleh. I've gone on at length, I think, for, like, how I think this relates to Origins. This idea was in the works long before Origins, but anyways. Hi. So, we have the species registry. Oh yes, we also have templates down here, which are very similar and incomplete, but they're coming later as well. Once I get species done, I can go back to making YouTube videos a bit more. But anyways, I digress. So what we currently do is we generate our default species. So there they are, right there. I've got a bunch more that I want to actually implement, but these are the ones we've got right now. And once we've gotten those created, we can turn them into JSON data so that we can then store them in the file structure. Consequently, if we look in data, various oddities, we don't see a grand total here much, but if we look into generated, we have species right here. And that gives us things like Archfey, Lizardfolk, Necropolitan is a fun one to say. And that's what that looks like. Now the problem is that we're not actually reading those back in. So we need to somehow boot this to the point where it actually reads them a bit better. Lizardfolk? Yeah, there's Lizardfolk. They are a humanoid of the subtype reptile. They have the natural armor ability as well as the hold breath ability, which doubles the size of your breath meter. Yes, that creates a graphical glitch. There's not much way around that, I'm afraid. I'm eating my own hair today, apparently. Bleh. But of course you can customize those on your own end, however you like. Necropolitan, technically, by the way, is... In D&D, Necropolitan is actually a template. You go through, like, a really basic ritual and you get turned into a Necropolitan from being a humanoid and whatnot. But it was, like... It's so low in power that it's, like, you could just start off as this. Like, it's literally about that. And it's basically just undead, but also you have natural regen. That's it. You still take damage from holy magic and whatnot, but if anybody wants to play an undead, then have at. But yeah, if we boot up, what we will find is that we don't have any species, despite the fact that they're right there. So that's what we need to find. Once we figured that out, if we figure that out tonight, then we can see about getting some, like, other abilities in. I'm hoping to get some weaknesses in. Mostly in the form of status effects. Because there is one ability that comes up a fair bit called Light Sensitivity, and it means that you are dazzled whenever you're in an area of bright light. Dazzled could easily be a status effect, is how simple it is. Which is like a mild drop in attack damage, but also, like, probably good to have a visual effect of that somehow. Do I have a species, I think. No, is it in types? There you are. You're probably gonna want to reorganize that. Okay. So there's those. Let's say I want to be an Acropolitan. Helps if I type it. Okay, found it. Good. Let's get some detail about that. Now, let's also make a new command for this, because it's its own thing. Where are you? There you are. Okay, so this we can shove into our own thing here. And you got some problems because you're not from the right thing. As well. Okay, that looks fine. Okay. Here is the important part, is the registration. Let's see, command dispatcher, command source dispatcher. There's a lot of casting. It's kind of a pain, but oh well. There will be occasions post, like, day one, where you are actually able to bring up the species select screen. By the by. So, for instance, the reincarnation spell, which brings things back from the dead, but changes what their race is, would probably run the same thing, but it would also, rather than showing you a screen, it would randomly select from species with a very small margin of power. But if you use things like shapeshift or polymorph, then you can specifically set what it'll be. That, however, is a temporary effect, so after it wears off, it'll restore your old ones. Anyways. That should all be good. So if we just go over here and register that, we should get ourselves a new event. Or a new command, rather. Okay. Oop, and there looks to be a problem there, but I think it's good. Yep. Okay. Wouldn't have changed anything, but let's see what it was. How is everybody today? You all doing okay? Having a good week so far? There we go. So there's all of that. Very good, very good. It's broken because ability specifies an entity first. Whereas obviously we haven't specified that. But it's there. You stayed in bed until like 1 PM thinking about my characters. Wow. Okay, so... New... Well, then... New literal... Get... and then... New arguments... Entity... Entity... Arguments... Entity. This is where I break things down. It makes it so much easier to read. Okay, that command needs to end. There. Then new literal set. Similar story. Okay. We're gonna want a list so that we can actually read out what they are. And we're going to want a... Would a reload be useful? Probably. Probably. At least we show it in here for the time being. Okay. So, let's also add an info. Private static int list species so the species registry should have a bunch of species. There's the instance. Where's a get? I know we had a get. Where's that gone? Get species. Ah, VO registries dot species. There we are. That's what I'm thinking of. That's also where abilities is kept. But unlike species, abilities are static. See, and we're going to want the keys. So set resource location species names equals that. Okay. Okay, so source and feedback. Translation. This is the busy work of making commands right now. Unfortunate, but oh well. And yes, allowed logging of that. And then for every resource location, name in species names, send feedback. I almost just typed translation slig. Going back to Oddworld, apparently. Do you not recall what a slig is, Dusty? these guys. that is a slig. They are a recurring enemy in the Oddworld franchise. Right, that should mean that we now get... Well, actually, we'll get utter gibberish out because we don't have a translation in the lang file right now. Let's see, command. There you are. I wonder if we even need translation for that part. Probably not. Probably just cheese it. There. No translation necessary there. Always handy. Let me bring that over to there real quick. And there's also a get that we need. Okay, that should be more or less what we have there. Okay. Info is going to be a bit more of a complicated one, but we'll get there. Okay. Now it should do stuff. Well, some stuff. It'll do the list. It'll still break if we try to get our set, but... Progress. Let me see. I've actually got to be up very extremely early this first day because I actually have a vaccination appointment. Numero uno. Not the second one just yet, but I have my first appointment, and unfortunately, it's like half an hour away by bus at 8 in the morning. So I gotta be up real early. Okay, list. Grand. Good. That's what we're looking for. That's a good start. Next, let's see if we can't retrieve some information about them. So for that, we're gonna want the info command. Let's call it detail species, why not? And we're going to need a resource location. And we'll throw a command syntax exception in the event that we don't find that particular thing. So species equals VO registries dot species dot get value species name. And that one should suffice. actually, no, invalid might do better, I think. Yeah. Okay. So just up here. Then new argument, name, resource location, arguments, suggests, species suggestions, and executes. Detail species. Resource location arguments dot get it from there that okay. Won't do anything right now, but occasionally fail if we give it the wrong thing, but progress. Yeah, the only thing for me medically is, if I've mentioned this a fair few times at this point, because I think I mentioned it at the first time anyone redeems squads every stream. I've got some medical issues going on, have been since like July last year, and one of the major symptoms of that is aches and pains, like severe aches and pains, a lot of the time. Especially when I'm like wearing tight clothing, which is annoying for me because that's like 90% of my wardrobe. But today, like, usually my meds, like, calm that down enough to work and stuff, but today apparently is not one of those days. So, this might be a short stream, because the easiest way for me to make that stop being so annoying and pestering is to take my bra off and such, and I have a rule that I will not stream in my pajamas or without a bra, because those are just bad situations. Makes the pants situation so much worse. Yeah. You're not wrong, but yeah. Yeah, my weight gain has made me lose so many pairs of trousers. I least, like, my like, trouser selection and whatnot is generally fairly loose, I will say. It's mostly my upper body that gets the tight treatment. But, oh well. Okay. First thing we need is species name. We're going to need creature types, and we're going to need abilities. Ideally, just the ones that are built into the species, rather than also the ones from, like, rather than the full map, as it were. But we'll start by just printing stuff out. So source, send a feedback. And let's see, source and feedback, new. Actually, I can probably just ask it for the types. Nope. 1 second, let's fix that up then. Where are your types? Add type. There you go. Okay, because from that we can just actually call a thing that puts it all neatly together in its own little thing. So species dot types, good, enum creature type dot, actually I think it should just be new types, I think. That one. Two header. Okay. And then we're going to get access to the abilities, which we do not have. Okay. Yeah, the reason my trouser collection has been hard hit by this whole malady is purely that another side effect of the whole thing is weight gain. Coupled with my doctors saying, you're extremely underweight, you should gain weight anyways. Okay, so we need ability display name. Okay. That's not perfect, but it should suffice at least to get us something. Right now we're mostly just building tools to analyze what's going on. So that when something inevitably goes wrong, we have the means to diagnose it. Okay. Hang on a second. Immune to death, immune to enchantment, unnatural. I've been turned into a necropolitan. Interesting. Okay, list, and let's get. Actually, I want details or info. That's the one. Flying as ice cream. Yeah, I've made that joke. Unknown or incomplete. Okay. So there is a problem here. Which is most likely... Oh no, that looks... That ends at the right place. That doesn't. There. But yeah, gets, that's good. Yes, set, entity name, yep, good. In fact, I'm actually just gonna real quick add a literal there. So, species set entity to blank. You notice I kept my movement abilities, I kept climbing and flight. Answer is because that is stored as part of my personal abilities, not part of my type or my species. That's why I said earlier, abilities come from a lot of different sources that are subject to change in gameplay. And that's before factoring in that you can have multiples of the same type and that they can change individually at the same time. Oh, anyways, it is 2 minutes past the clock. I am going to be back in about 10 minutes area. Have a nice break.
Oh.
Welcome back, everybody. Hope you had a nice little break there. So, before we left off, we were working to get an info readout of a species so we can actually see what is in the data. And I've done a little bit of tidying up in the break period there, but we should nonetheless be able to see it. So, if I run get my species, apparently I am in fact a member of the Necropolitan species. Which should mean if I give myself saturation, I can actually heal. just as a test. Oh yes, it's effect, not give. Effect, or rather, it's effect give, which is bleh. Yep, good. I'm still undead, but nonetheless, okay. Handy to know, I guess. Let's see, species list will get us a list of all the species that we have, and if we run info, let's say on the lizard folk, we should get a full thing. So name, lizard folk, humanoid reptile, natural armor +5, and hold breath. +5 is 2.5, like, shields, if you're wondering. Okay. That's good. We do want to change this a little bit more. It's good that that's handy. That's why I was calling through the actual types thing, so we can actually get these tooltips there. What we want to do now is change this up so that when we click on something here, we actually get its details, which is very convenient, I've found. Very handy. That, by the way, is fully translated, so I don't have to worry about it being readable at all. Okay, so when we list them, or actually a lot of times actually, we're going to want to have a thing here. So we need, where are you? We need the command ability. Or the ability command, which is also command ability, but still. What creatures have light sensitivity? You have photosensitivity, so you want to avoid being a creature with that. I don't know enough about graphics to actually implement, like, increasing the brightness of the game. But light sensitivity is for things like Durgar, for Drow, for Orcs. So if I just bring up Orc. There we are. Light sensitivity. Right there. They also have dark vision, which I have yet to figure out how to properly implement, but still. Orcs are dazzled in bright sunlight or within the radius of a daylight spell. So you'll probably be fine under most circumstances. Half-orcs don't have that, notably. But interesting nonetheless. But yeah, it doesn't do very much mechanically. It's mechanically for various abilities, it's basically just like a -1 to your attack damage. And also a visual thing that just tells you, hey, it's really bright, but I would probably just be doing that as like a tint, not even maybe a tinting, more like a vignetting, like a white vignette. That's probably about it. Anyways, get ability, there you are, with edit. So we want to change that to a species. So let's see, we want ability. Entry is just the thing. So we want new string text component species registry name to string. And we don't need the map name at all for this. So species info and species registry name to string. Okay, that should be fine. So let's see, show text. Grab that. Got nervous about that, like, oh no. Yeah, it's... blindness is a hell of a lot worse than anything you have to worry about with light sensitivity. Because if light sensitivity was a deal breaker for most people, they probably wouldn't play an orc in the first place. Or a drow. And God knows, a lot of people like to play drow. Okay, list click should be fine. Quickly change that to click info. I don't think we even actually need that. We probably just need that, because we're not going to be showing anything but the registry name. We could put actual, like, names inside of the species, but they would essentially break the second you were not talking English. So... okay. That's looking close to good. Click for more information. Yeah. Yeah, as a general rule, when you're designing visual effects for video games and whatnot, it is best to try to avoid causing the actual thing that you're trying to replicate in the person that is playing. So, for instance, if you're trying to implement a nausea effect, this is quite a notorious example from Minecraft. Don't actually implement it in a way that makes people nauseous. Like, you'll certainly make people avoid it, but not for the reason that you're going for. Oh, I did not actually implement that being added. That's correct. Get species with info, and we want name, I think? Yeah, we just use the name here, so resource location should suffice. And we will not need a host, because this isn't part of a single thing. Okay, that should be good. Yeah. People in chat definitely know what I'm talking about when it comes to nausea in Minecraft. I also had like a heated discussion recently with somebody regarding the paralysis effect in various oddities. Surprisingly, they didn't have any. They didn't voice any concern about the blindness effect, but their specific concern was that there's another mod called Mahosuke, and it has an effect called Eyes of Binding, which is much like being paralyzed, except it doesn't actually have much in the way of a visual indicator that that's what's happening. You can move your camera around, but you can't place blocks, you can't attack, you can't move. It cancels out most of your input controls. And it gives you like a little notification on the top right there that you have a status effect, but you don't necessarily know what that means. And paralysis, for comparison, oh, I'm undead, so I'm immune to paralysis right now. Of course. Hang on, let me just set myself to something that can actually be We'll go with lizard folk. Why not? There we go. Now I can be paralyzed. This is what you see in various Undertales when you are paralyzed. You immediately know what's happening. You know how long it'll be for. You do get that little pop-up in the side, but that's relatively negligible. And you've got all of the things that you can do in one place, essentially. Whereas with the Eyes of Binding from Mahosukai, you don't necessarily know, unless you know what Eyes of Binding means. Resigned to your fate. Yeah, much the same with like petrification there. And I personally prefer that, because it does what I need it to do, which is to say prevents the player from doing anything. You can't jump, you can't move, you can't rotate your camera, you can't access your inventory or anything. And it also gives this sort of locked-in sensation. Because I don't know how this is for everybody else, but for me, being in a menu screen, especially this menu screen, feels internal. It feels not like it's in the world, as it were. Which is effectively what's happening when you're paralyzed. You're sort of locked into your own head for a bit. They preferred the Mahosukai implementation of things, whereas I prefer the screen. But do let me know what you guys think. There are two implementations of paralysis in effect, but in quite distinct ways. Okay, let's run our species list. We should have some color to it now. We don't, but we do have click for more information, which is progress. If I click lizard folk, brings up that. So I can now do that and see all of that. Grand. Okay, that's good progress. We do want to color that so that people realize that there's something happening there. So for example, types list all, I think it is. Yeah. Does it like that, so that there's an indication that this is something significant. In single player, I think the game itself pauses when you open that menu. Would paralysis do the same? That could be a concern. It does not, because if it did, the timer would be frozen. The paralysis menu is not a pause menu. Thanks, Meg. Yeah, in order for you to actually know how much time you have left, it needs to update, and if it paused the game, then it would be a problem. Like, you would pause, and then your game would just be over. Okay, there we go, there's the formatting. Okay. So now it'll actually show a thing that we can use. Good, 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 good. That is basically all of the information that we need for the moment. Evidently getting set is working ahead of time. Yeah, set species right there. So I didn't realize it when it said that I'd set it, but well, not gonna complain too much. Blah, blah. Okay, so we need a living entity. Yep. Display name to name. Yep.
Making good progress.
Why, thank you. Thank you very much, Shadow. Paralysis Hardcore Edition, get paralyzed and basically lose your will. That's called being petrified. Paralysis usually, almost always, has an end point. Petrification doesn't. Petrification is permanent. You are either cured of it by an external source, or you submit and die. Subscriber hats are different colours? They are indeed. Yeah. Quite the coven we have. Okay. So that's now translated. That's translated. the next test will be to alter the data pack, essentially, and see if it actually updates properly. Like, if we go to here, and we just essentially comment out all of these, and there is still stuff there, then we know that there's still a problem, because it's actually... And if there's still stuff there, it's presumably loading it. If there isn't, then we know that there's a problem, because it's just referencing the default species. So there's our species registry, right there. Several shades of blue, and also brown. Also, thank you, Gibbo, for the raid during the break. Forgot about that for a hot second. Hope you're enjoying your day. Yeah, brown is for junior witches, I guess. Novices, apprentice witches. Okay, so we've commented out all of the things that go into the default registry. If we check our log here in the console, we notice that there is nothing there, which is a bad sign. Yeah, which means it's just drawing them directly from the defaults, which are things that get generated into data. Which is bad, suffice it to say. Yeah, registry event, right there. Whereas we want it to actually generate. We want it to generate the data, and then register. But if it's just registering it from that, then it's always going to be the defaults. We won't be able to add any custom ones, we won't be able to change any of them. And that's what we're mostly trying to do today, but now we actually have the diagnostics to, like, check it, so that's good. And presumably our reload ability will come in handy later. Not right now, but later. But let me see, quick round off of the things I'm planning to add as, like, default species. We have Archfey, Aasimar, Creeper, Blue Dragon, Ender Dragon, Green Dragon, Red Dragon, Goblin, Half-Orc, Kobold, Lizard Folk, Orc, Skeleton, Tiefling, Troglodyte, and Zombie. Quite an array. And a lot of them are very much alike, but these are mostly like things that are, generally speaking, like player ready, as opposed to be like, this would be overpowered to have on day one. And then later on, we have the templates, which are like species. They get applied on top of your species. So they can alter your creature types, they can alter your abilities, and they're generally speaking quite a bit more powerful. It's pretty, those are essentially your way to getting a species, like starting with your like initial species, your way to getting to a more powerful species. Lich would be an example of a template. They have paralysis as a touch attack. Meaning if they're not holding something and they punch you, they can give you paralysis. Quite annoying, one would imagine. They're also usually very powerful, like spellcasters, but that we'll be handling in a future updates. Okay, so we know that part shouldn't be working like that. We need to somehow register everything from the data pack. So let's have a look at a mod that we know already does this. Namely, the skill tree of vampirism. Now, I'm not entirely clear on how this one works, because it's got a lot less to it than we do. Let's see, apply seems pretty much identical to what we have. This is the thing that actually is like reading from the JSON data. But clearly it's not getting called. So what do we do here? That's the question. Is there a date? Yeah, VO species provider act goes for each of the default species. Okay, good. So, do we just tell it to reload? Add a reload listener event. I see. Okay, right. Which is right there, which we already have going, actually. Okay. So that part's fine, but evidently there's an issue. Let's have a look at this. Fired on, let's see, recreated on each, the main resource manager is recreated on each reload through data pack registry's creation. The event is fired on each reload and lets modders add their own reload listeners for server-side resources. Fired on the event bus. Okay. So if I just take out that, then it'll immediately stop anything ever coming up, apparently. Yeah, on register species, right there. Which is fine, but evidently not the whole picture. Because what we want to do is read from our data pack into our registry so that we know all of what we've got. And then when we call a reload, we can just call whatever happens there, presumably. Let's see. What calls apply? Where does that get called? Reload listener. Yep, all of that's okay. This is getting complex. Async reloader, okay. Where do you get called from? Reload resources, okay, from simple reloadable resource manager .class, which apparently, okay, reload resources. That's a start at least. Let's see. There is a data pack command, and I think one of the commands in there is reload. List, disable, first, last, before, after, enable, data pack. List available packs, list all packs. I'm just looking through here to see if there is a point where it just reloads. Reload packs from finders. Hello, what are you doing? Apparently not dreadfully much, as near as I can tell. This is why I don't tend to bother with files, with file management. Ugh. Okay, let's just quickly jot down what we need to do here. So we need to clear current entries in species registry, and then reload species from files. If species empty, load defaults. I don't. That does not appear to be clear and empty here. Well, we presume it'll be empty, I guess, when that starts, so there's that. So if there's nothing, it just loads up all the defaults. If there is stuff, though, we want to just follow that stuff. Let's see. Are there registry events here? New, register, missing mappings. How do I trigger that from here, though? Particularly because I'm pretty sure that if I call for it to just run the whole thing, then it'll get stuck in a perpetual loop of registering species, reload the data pack, registering species, essentially, over and over and over and over. Because that's what this big hunk is here. That is registry readouts after the data pack and such has been loaded. Let's have a look at you. Doesn't look like there is much else here. I don't think these abilities are actually held in a registry. At least I'm fairly certain they're not. Let's comment these out again. Let's also comment that out. Right. And see if we can't get a reload going that puts something there. Because if we do reload the data pack, it should still call that. I'm surprised nobody's made me do squats today. I have such a cute outfit as well. Lying, I'm out of points. Aww. Okay, 0 registered species. So then, data pack list. The built-in ones. Okay, F3 and T. That just loads that just reloads the resource packs. I don't think that reloads the data packs is the problem. Also, I know Camifig is in chat. Or at least I'm fairly certain Cam is in chat. Yeah. If Cam doesn't have points, I'll be amazed. Okay. So we don't have a thing to just reload the data packs. But we do need to try and figure out a way to reload specifically the species data pack. Or the species in data packs, I guess, would be the exact phrasing of that. Okay. Let's go over to our command species ability and see if we can't come up with something. So we're gonna need a server. First thing I notice. We need a resource manager or data manager. Data directory, data pack registries. Advancement, command, function, loots, recipe, resource. I guess we're looking for the resource manager. Are we? What was the thing called that I was looking at before? Okay, well that's the advancement manager. Yeah. Thank you, Espa. There you are. And that relates to the resource pack list. No, that's the resource packs, not the data packs. Function manager would be a good place to look, actually. Oh boy, that's a bunch there. Okay, right. Let me see if doing some squats will help my thinking on that, shall we? Here we go. Teeny me up in the corner there. Yay! Okay, so here's the outfit for today. It's pretty nice. This is a fairly new addition to my tank top selection, so I'm kind of enjoying it. Apparently, it's for followers of the deity Pan, but as far as I was aware, Pan is dead. So who knows? I should have a points thing for just showing off my outfit. I guess maybe, but then people would spend it on that rather than just like whether or not I do squats. It's kind of an important thing for my health, so. Anyways, there we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. There we go. Yo. Yeah. And yes, I finally get to show off the outfit I've got today. I haven't worn these trousers in a while. They're very nice, very comfy. Alright. Thank you for that, Esme. I think I might have to beseech the Forge devs to figure out exactly what's wrong here. Purely because there is a lot of stuff here, and some parts of it are, well, most of it, in fact, isn't commented. Some parts of it aren't even translated from obfuscation. So, I have blessedly little idea what the hell this is all talking about. So instead of doing that, we're going to try and add a status effect. How's that sound? Just like a nice little space, like, a nice little, oh, my brain's gone. All the blood's gone to me thighs. A nice little, like, debuff. Just stick that there so it stops complaining at me. There. Okay. Put that on the back burner for the time being. And okay. So, we already have a couple of potions. We have paralysis and we have sleep. Sleep is non-functional at the moment because it's meant to put affected mobs into the sleeping pose, and that is evidently not as reliable as one would like. So if for example I put a zombie into the sleeping pose, zombies are usually immune to sleeping, but bleh, they don't get back up when they walk around. Same thing happens to players, so I need to figure out what's going on with that. Paralysis is fairly straightforward otherwise. So we're gonna start off with Potion Dazzled. Very straightforward for this one. So this will be called Dazzled. This is a bad effect, a debuff. Oh yes, effect type. Used to just be a boolean, but now there's 3 different kinds, so bleh. Futures equal multi-threading? Yeah, not a chance in hell I know about that. Okay. We're gonna apply this purely to attack damage. Now, strictly speaking, when you are dazzled, you don't actually take a damage penalty, you take a penalty to attack rolls, search checks, and spot checks. But you don't make attack rolls in Minecraft. So, the only real meaningful equivalent is to just reduce the damage that you deal. And it's not even by a very huge amount. Dazed is more, like, is more meaningful. I would, if I was to describe the Mahosukai Eyes of Binding effect as a D&D effect, I would probably describe it as Dazed. Unable to act normally, can take no actions, but has no penalty to AC. That's how I would describe Eyes of Binding, specifically. Anyways. So we need a UUID, which means we need to make sure it's unique. My usual way of doing that is to generate it randomly, and use the random result. Make that addition, so it's -1. And okay, so we want to, firstly, UID.random. And then we want to print that out. Semicolon. There's always a semicolon somewhere. Okay, init, potions. Oh, at least 2 of them don't anymore. Equals add potion, new potion, dazzled. We'll say -1 for the time being, because I don't know what else to call this thing. Icon index is pretty much irrelevant these days, I think. It's related to the icon that you see in your inventory, but obviously that's no longer a thing, so we probably don't even need that. I think I can probably just take all of that out. Yeah, it's probably fine. Is that even from anywhere? Literally nowhere. I would have thought that part was used, but apparently not. Might as well tidy some of this up while we're here. Okay. That should all be good. I don't think there's anything in here. Yeah, sleep is all kinds of a mess. Paralysis, more straightforward. Okay. Gonna have to check the logs for this UUID because the logs are utterly spammed. I don't know exactly why they thought it would be a good idea just as general to have every single entry of every single registry in the entire game be printed out to the log, but I can't say it's not useful information. Let's look at the menu for paralysis, that one. Okay. There we are, okay. So, there we are, potion dazzled, UUID generated. That is as close to unique as we could reasonably make it, so... Okay. And that will ensure that it stays the same. And now we can give ourselves the Dazzled effect, which will not have a name or an icon, but it will be there. So then the next thing to do is alter the rendering. So yep, there it is. So we have it, we got the particles and everything. I can take those off. Doesn't have a name, doesn't have an icon. And the effect itself is so mild we'd probably never notice if you didn't tell us we had it. So. Like, it's -1 to damage. The main... Well, I guess if I walked up to the villager and started punching him. Because your fists deal 1 damage. Probably worth a test, I guess. Just while I wait for that to boot up, let's actually... Hit events with less than 0 damage don't cause reactions in enemies, or is that unique to weakness? I don't think it's unique to weakness, because weakness just reduces your attack damage. So it should still, like, work in this case. Also, hi Dave. Okay. Let me just see what your health is currently. Right, I forgot I gave you custom types. Monstrous humanoid goblin. That's just mean. Let's see, health. God, I wish these were alphabetical. Hurt by time spam 253, so I've definitely attacked you before. Gossips. They just have data values for gossip. I know what that's for, but it's entertaining. Health 7. Okay. I'll do you a favor, and I'll give you more health. How's that? I'll actually, like... If you stand still, I will give you a health effect. How's that? There. That would make some kind of sense if they were alphabetical. At the very least, just, like, show it in a fashion we can understand a bit better. Okay, health is now 20. If I give myself the Dazzled effect, then I should have -1 attack damage, which should mean that I'm now 0 attack damage, which should mean that punching you will still make it be 0 unless I do a crit, essentially. Do that for like 60 seconds. Yep, there we go. Perfect. Okay, we know that's working. Okay, very good, very good. A back rub, yeah. It was either he appears to take damage but his health stays at 20, or it just doesn't react, in which case, yeah. Same diff, essentially. Okay. Now we need our bus. VO bus client, which already does a bunch of stuff around here, including how our blindness is rendered. In some degree, in some extents. Okay. So public static void on render dazzled. And this is... I'm trying to think. There's a specific event that relates to rendering things, and I cannot, for the life of me, remember which one it is. Oh, am I thinking of up here? GUI. Screen ability menu, is that what I'm thinking of? Ah, game overlay. There we go. Yeah, that's the thing I'm thinking of. Right there. Now, there is a downside to this, which is, if we render it, if we do the effect here, then much like the pumpkin overlay, players can avoid it by just turning off their HUD. Not necessarily a terrible thing, especially when especially with an effect as incredibly mild as Dazzled. But something to consider. Okay, now I need to have a look at one of the screens here because the vignette is applied in the rendering and I want to see how. Let's see, fill gradient. Let's see, color from, color to. Those are some really big decimal colors. But the actual code is fairly straightforward, at least insofar as I understand rendering. I'm presuming those decimal colors are so long because they include an alpha channel. And if I change what those numbers are, then I can make the vignette bigger or smaller, essentially. So otherwise, this will be fairly similar to what vampirism does when you're a vampire in sunlight. Actually, very similar, because light sensitivity happens in more or less the same condition. But okay, so disable texture enable and... Okay, I'm just gonna drag this off screen. And hope, essentially, that I'm rendering this properly. You can get behind that sentiment? Oh, you're thinking about my butt? Not to worry, I also think about my butt quite often. Okay, disable texture. Also, hey dude, how you doing? Been a bit. What's wrong? What's wrong, Dusty? My butt is always at the back of my mind. Been slowly dying? Oh no. What's up? Are all slow dying? True. You're not wrong there. Hibisco, caffeine, and lithium, which made apparent that your kidneys are degrading from lithium. Oh dear. Why were you drinking lithium? I know the batteries have like a "don't eat me" label on them. Come on. Oh, I see. Right. That makes a fair bit of sense, yes. Lithium is used to treat some conditions. Yes, much like nitroglycerin is. So you use to treat heart problems. But it's always entertaining. It's like don't shake a heart patient too hard. I presume this is a cancelable event. Yep. Good. Oh, yes, okay, right. I once again overrun my own break. So I'll be back in about 10 minutes then. Everybody go grab yourselves a drink and maybe some snacks and meds and whatnot. See you then. Welcome back, everybody, to the final hour of our evening, possibly the next half hour, because I'm getting very uncomfy. But we tried to do species, and then we realized we hit a roadblock with species after we had the command to actually diagnose what's going on. So I will have to consult the oracles with all of the pleasure of Leonidas consulting, consulting the oracle. But we then decided to do something hopefully very quick, which is to implement the dazzle effect, which is part of the light sensitivity weakness. I say weakness, it's an ability, but it is classed as a weakness. So far, we've got the attribute part working just fine. So your attack damage is reduced by 1 if you have dazzled. But we are now trying to get a graphical element to it, which says a bit more sunbright. Sadly, you can't sneak into the last 45 minutes of building blocks to mischief. I'm okay with this. I'm not even sure what... I don't know exactly what form mischief in building blocks would take, but I feel like it would be dramatically more problematic than sneaking into my streams for Come Block Home. You can't even try hard enough to simply go to his house. That would be impressive, honestly. Okay, that's good. We have a screen. Hopefully when this wears off, or if I just remove it, I guess. Effect, clear, dev. Okay, bloop. And there's a problem. Champion has access to my computer. No! It's effect instant, isn't it? Call it dazzle. I bet I know exactly what happened there. Which is... let's have a look. Null pointer. At the point where it was getting the duration. So, yeah. We want dazzle does not equal null, and dazzle's duration is greater than 0. There. Simple and straightforward. Now, the fact that we had a jet black screen is because the standards gradient is from black and then round the wheels again, essentially, into zeros, and then back to black. I inverted that by swapping these numbers around. I was expecting that we would get like a pinpoint of black in the middle of the screen, but that we get anything is progress. So I'll take it. So hopefully now it won't crash when it does that. By the way, Dave, there is a new version of Varus Equipment out which shouldn't have the bug that you were seeing. I haven't fixed it in the most elegant fashion. It's literally just a try-catch around the problematic elements, but it should work. I think the most recent, also a big fix in Maho for when we had. Oh, nice. Okay. So, effect, give, dev, dazzle me. Okay, good. And effect, clear, dev, also good. Okay, also bonus points, it does not affect the HUD up here, because it's a different element. Okay. What we need to do now is change this from black to a white, ideally. In fact, let me just grab a thing here. Can you make a sword that crashes the client of whoever is hit but doesn't crash the user? I wouldn't say that's suboptimal so much as server bane. Let's make that 4 or 5 seconds. And plonk that on repeat. Okay, so now if I stand on top of this thing, I should get that effect. But if I stand off, it just goes off. Good. Okay. Easy testing, easy life. So now we need to figure out what these values correspond to. Because this is only drawing 4 points, it's only drawing a square. It just happens to be that the outer edges of that square are actually, like, passing through a color. And that's the part that I'm not entirely clear on. Because I would have thought you'd draw a circle to make a gradient, but graphics ain't my field, so who knows. Let's see if I actually change this at all for us changing that. Quite a limited gradient if you can only specify 2 points. I mean, yes, but I only need one. I only need 2. Transparent and white. I suppose I can just check the vampirism code for reference, but... Okay, so point of order, we don't have any kind of gradient at all, because the vignette ain't working properly. Okay. So we need to go and check the vignette. Let's see, where are you? There. Let's also just move that. Okay, so pre just does that apparently. Oh. Does a bunch, of course it does. Need to put this here since vanilla assumes the state after the vignette was rendered. Okay. So this actually checks a texture. Right. Okay, so the vignetting is a different thing to the background screen of almost every, like, inventory UI, because every inventory UI has, like, the tinted black kind of screen. Okay, right. Getting the picture. Next question, where are you drawing this texture from? Yeah, there's the vignette. Ah, they're cheating. I see. I say cheating, but I probably couldn't do without cheating either. Until very, very, very recently. If we go to here. Into there. Let's see. Presets? Nope. Somewhere in here is a vignette file. Textures misc. There we go. There's nausea right there. Okay, so yeah, there's the vignette right there. That's what it uses. It just has a texture file that it stretches across the whole of your screen. Ah. Yeah, that's where it gets blurred. Okay, right, yeah. So it cheats. It doesn't actually go through the trouble of making a big gradient. It just cheats. Okay. Hey, work smarter, not harder, I guess. Okay, right. So if we clone this code, essentially, we should be able to get this thing working properly. It's interesting that the texture is transparency to solid color, rather than the other way around. Now the downside of that approach is that you can't alter the amount of the gradient. You can't move it in or out. So you're just stuck with whatever's in the file. Which is a similar problem that Vampirism has with its ability HUD. Its ability HUD is a rendered circle and it just draws the demarcations between abilities on it. That is dramatically different to the Various Oddities abilities menu, of course, which it actually draws the shapes that it uses, which allows us to have a lot more functionality to them, like popping them in and out, changing their color independently, that kind of thing. Okay. Rebuilding, we are currently attempting to make a essentially staring at the sun effect. Specifically called Dazzled, which is an effect that happens when you're exposed to bright light and you happen to be a bit sensitive to it. Currently what we have is your screen gets darker. But okay, if we clone that then essentially for right now, it should be fine. Okay, mask button function. Yeah, so do I want to try and figure this out in a manner that actually works the way I'd prefer it to work? Or do I want to build this so that it'll just, like, work for right now at the very least? Do I want this to have a fixed amount of vignetting? Or do I want to have it variable? Ooh. There is the question, isn't it? What do we think, everybody? Do I go ham on the graphics code, which will probably take like 5 hours anyways, or do we just cheat and use a texture? Do let me know, what do you think? Dusty's always down for cheating. Okay. Is the right, yes, the shadows aren't any better. The shadow of literally every living creature in Minecraft is just this texture of a circle. This texture of a black circle. Lazy, lazy, lazy. But it ships, I guess, so. Yeah. at least for the time being, we'll just use a texture. We can switch it over to something more complicated later. Now, if I'm right about how that's generated, we should be able to just invert the
Player
colors.
has joined the game.
Ghost! Hello. If we just invert the colors, it'll turn it white. Can I enter you at a programming school tomorrow? Ooh, good luck! I have a bachelor's of science in computing. Not that it's serving me much use programming Minecraft code here, but yeah. Okay, invert. Ooh, which has the slight downside there that it's... Yeah, has it... Is there even an alpha channel here? I don't think there is. Oh. Well, let's invert it and see what happens. At the very least, we'll have a very clear idea of something changed. Okay, let's drag that over there. My specialty in programming, however, is AI and system building. So setting up the ability system and the creature type system and making mobs actually work interactively inside of a civilization. That I can do. That is my specialty. Web development you're going for? Oh, yeah. Well, have fun. Okay, our vignette texture path for this would be... Textures, misc. Yeah, textures, misc, vignette dazzled. And then we need the scaled height and the scaled width. Okay, that's most of this correct. Ooh, they're actually doing some cheeky stuff in here. We're doing some little bits of sneakery inside this code, actually, which I'll explain in a hot minute. Would I say coding is a hard thing to learn? I mean, I got into programming from like Gary's mod way back when, so I don't know if I'm necessarily the best judge. I would say once you get the hang of it, you can do basically anything, especially if you start off with the right systems. The hard part is learning to look up documentation. Okay, I think that's good. We'll find out exactly how much I've messed things up in a hot second, but here we go. The great thing about most client-side code is that you don't crash the game when it goes wrong. Not all like rendering code, but oh boy. Makes texture pack work easier. Yeah. Looks less fancy though. No idea what Gary's mod is? If you've heard of Half-Life, the engine that's built on is called the Source engine, and Gary's mod basically lets you do whatever the heck you like inside of it. It's a sandbox game. Arguably one of the, like, originals. Or one of the more influential, I guess. Okay. That's a good sign, believe it or not. This almost feels like I should be worried about radiation. But that is actually a good sign, because that is the missing texture file. Which is just to tell me that I did not refresh the resources. Okay, we've achieved something. Namely, I cannot see in front of me. But I can see my peripheral. It's not the right color, but that's good. Okay. So if I re-invert that and then change around the color, we might get something that resembles what it should be. But yeah, that is progress. Believe it or not. Do I still have that file open? Yes, I do. So let's just replace that. That'll get it back to where it needs to be, and then we just change the color. I think. Let's see, is there a color call in here? There is in the GUI code. Yeah, because it turns the vignetting of your screen turns red when you get close to the world border. So otherwise it's just the brightness right there. Okay. So if we color 4F, 1F, 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 and what do you know, 1F. That should turn it white. We hope. God willing. Haha, bold of you to think God has anything to do with Minecraft code. Satan willing, on the other hand. Okay. Did I not rename it, or did I name it the wrong thing? Ah, yes. Vignette dazzled. Dazzled vignette. That's my problem. Nice of it to show me a green screen. Okay. Just refresh. World's most funky night vision. God, night vision in Minecraft is such a disappointment by comparison, honestly. Okay, that is close. It's not the right color, but it's close. I can only presume that what's happening with the way that it's rendering here is it is taking the black and the white, using that essentially as a mask. So the outermost edges, where it's white, are more opaque than the innermost part that's black. So it's using that as a luma matte, rather than strict actual, rather than a strict actual texture. But okay, we have ways of dealing with that. So if I bring it back up, we can modify the texture a bit further, get rid of our blend functions, I think. In some respect, we'll see. Also do away with that color. Okay. I'm trying to think. I guess at least one of these blends is going to be related to transparency, and I guess I'll find out which. You, Java, I don't disagree. But I also don't have a choice. wanted to make a cheap night vision and that made everything grayscale. Honestly, I could kind of do with that because dark vision in Dungeons and Dragons is grayscale. But unfortunately, to do dark vision and low light vision in Minecraft would require massively overhauling the lighting engine, as far as I understand. Okay. So we need to use the black of this as an alpha level. No, but you're about to tell me that low light vision and dark vision are possible in Minecraft because I would really love to hear it. Just going to do the night vision buff, but apply a grayscale shade. Yeah. There's probably an easier way for me to do this, and I probably already know it. But it requires booting up After Effects. Which is a little bit of a memory hog. Because I've just described this as a Luma map, because that is literally what's happening. The brighter it is, the more opaque it is. If we just go to After Effects, drop this file in, use it as a Luma mat on a white screen, we can literally just create exactly what we want. I won't meddle with levels at all. Let's see, color to alpha? Yeah, hello. Can I invert you? Actually, even better, I can just select black. Yeah, so it's white around the edges. Aha! Don't even need to open After Effects, but it will anyway, because I've already clicked it. Okay, overwrite that. But let me just tell After Effects to close, because it will eat up every bit of memory you have. Okay. Adventures in rendering a texture. So now it's not blending, so it's not applying it as a matte. So we should hopefully get what we're looking for. So far as I can tell here anyways. Bearing in mind, graphics, not my thing, almost got me, like, almost cost me the entirety of my degree. Quite possibly contributed significantly to being near worthless, but blame. I say that every time I have to do graphics, I know, but still, it bears repeating. But yeah, to do low light vision, I would need to effectively either half the decay of light sources, which is difficult because they're already an integer, or double the magnitude of light sources. So everything goes out twice, so a torch gives like a brightness of 30 instead of 15. And then dark vision basically is night vision, except that it's black and white wherever it would actually be black. So you'd need like a transition towards grayscale. It's just, you need to really massively overhaul the lighting engine of Minecraft, which is so incredibly basic. Hey! Good news, everybody, it works! Wouldn't bother transitioning, you just have it be, like, wrote black and white. I guess that's a way to go about it. Okay. Now, it'd be good if we could also, like, fade that in and out, which we probably can. So, if the duration of the dazzle effect is lower than, say, 5 seconds, we can get that as a percentile and use that to alter the alpha channel. So, come up here, and we're going to want alpha equals, let's see, this would be dazzle.getDuration as a float over reference values seconds times 5, and cap that off. So as your effect goes below 5 seconds, it should just fade out. It'll still pop in, which is not as helpful, but... Have I neglected something new? I think that'll just incrementally fade. Not just fade from 5 seconds. No, it should work fine. Need to test if it's below 5 seconds, which it gets capped off being at 1. So if it's greater than 5 seconds, it's at 1. If it's lower than that, then it should start to give us a dropping percentile. Okay, and... Oh, it's like butter. Oh, that's gorgeous. So full on, steadily going away. Oh, that's gorgeous. I love it. Don't you love it when things work the first time? So the next thing we could do is have it warm up, essentially. So instead of that, boom, you've got it. We could have it actually tick up. And that's a little bit more complicated. Slash effect give blah 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 blah. When command blocks? Oh yeah, it's bleh. Commands are always a funky thing. Okay, so we don't need that, and we don't need that because we've already got alpha built into our texture. Which is still cheating in my book, but... well... Considering how much work went into making the ability screen for this mod, I don't much blame them. Okay, next stop. I think we'll call that good for the time being. Next stop, add an ability. So, species, abilities. Ability, light, sensitivity. Goodbye, talkie song. Okay, so type weakness. I think this might actually be the first one we've... This might actually be the first weakness we've implemented. Or at least the first thing that is outright a weakness. It's not a huge weakness, to be sure, but it's a weakness. And this would be an extraordinary property, which is to say, a property arising from nature. Nature is, like, the nature here is irrelevant for the time being, because we don't have anything that turns anything off. But later on, templates can remove, like, some kinds of ability, and anti-magic fields will prevent some from working as well. Okay, public static class builder extend ability.builder. Don't think we need any variables for this. Okay. Add listeners. And the thing we're going to need here is apply sensitivity, I guess. And that would be a living update event. Okay. So, living entity. And if entity.hasAbility, actually this will be part of the ability registry. So, check light level at head. If 15 or higher. Okay, I guess we can have like MBT to determine how sensitive to light you are. But it's meant to be bright, like 15, so we'll go with 15. It pretty much cannot be higher than 15, though, as a point of note. So, there's that. Because again, Minecraft lighting system, not complicated. Add potion effect. Effect instance, VO potion is dazzled. We'll say for 6 seconds. So it starts to come off pretty much immediately after leaving the sun. 0, false, false, which should hide the potion effects, because that would just be really irritating. Okay. Add that to our registry, and it should be good to go. Let's find out. I have a sneaking suspicion that it's going to fail because of just the convoluted way in which light is retrieved. But, we'll find out. Okay. So there it is. Apply. We are immediately in trouble. We don't have any potion effects in our face, but... Okay, let's build ourselves a little house. And it is degrading. Okay, but if I step back out, back up again. Okay. That's good. That is pretty good, I think. So you just gotta find yourself some shade, essentially. Yeah, I do want it to sort of fade in, so it's not quite as abrupt. But yeah, grand and good. So need to actually add a translation for that, but that is light sensitivity implemented. Also the dazzled effect. Let's see, ability. There you are. Ability, Varod, light sensitivity. There. Hallmark of most of the underground races. Oh, and the way it just slowly goes away. Oh, that's gorgeous. That's gorgeous. Right, so let me see. I definitely don't have time to do much of anything else today, but let's have a look at other conditions that we could maybe implement later. Because there's conditions and abilities and such have a lot of cross-interaction. So let's see. Blinded, pretty clear one. We just have that effect, and it just gives you the blind effect, or the blind ability, I guess. Checked. Prevent from achieving forward motion by an applied force such as wind. Checked creatures on the ground merely stopped. Checked flying creatures move back a distance. So I guess for that we would need to have a specific notion of which direction the checking is happening. That would be a complex effect. Cowering is pretty fun. Cowering, frightened, and I think terrified, is it? Something to that effect. Petrified. Yeah. Those are the three fear effects, and there are increasing kind of levels of terror. A frightened creature flees from the source of its fear as best it can. The notion of a source means it's a complex effect and is not necessarily easily done by just a status effect. So, bit of a trouble there. Shaken, bit easier. Similar, it's very similar to Dazzled, but just sort of like double. And then, let's see, Panicked. A panicked creature must drop anything it holds and flee at the top speed from the source of its fear. Again, reference to a specific source means that it's a complex effect that we can't just do with a status effect, because status effects don't have MBT for us to use, or any kind of data storage, for that matter. Petrified, we will be making. We will be redoing. We have done that. We did that in 112. That is basically a form of paralysis, so we will be doing that quite easily. Sickened, sort of similar to Shaken, but also applies to damage rolls quite explicitly, and also a tricky one to do, because the first thing we could possibly do there is the nausea effect, but we don't want to do the nausea effect because nobody likes the nausea effect. It's terrible. A stunned creature drops everything held, can't take actions, takes a -2 penalty to AC, and loses dexterity bonus. This we can definitely do. Like, that's pretty, like, easy. No problem. Staggered, I really do want to implement non-lethal damage into Minecraft, because it would make so much difference to the way that PvP is handled. Non-lethal damage in Dungeons & Dragons, for the uninformed. Basically, it's, you've been in a barroom brawl, but you don't have any, like, actual life-threatening injuries. You're bruised, you're achy, you've got, like, swelling over one eye, and you can barely stand. But give you, like, a week in bed, you'll be fine. Essentially. That's what non-lethal damage is. It's when somebody, like, beats you up, but then just, like, leaves you in the alley, essentially. Rather than stabbing or shooting you, essentially. Or, like, breaking bones, that sort of thing. And in Minecraft, there is only one kind of damage. Lethal. But if you could do non-lethal damage to people, and admittedly there are relatively few occasions in D&D where you are actively trying to just... where you're trying to, like, disable people rather than kill them, but, you know, it comes up. It opens up a bunch of opportunities, like kidnapping, for instance. If you beat somebody unconscious, you can, like, lasso them and just drag them where you want to be, that sort of thing. Fun little idea there. Fun. Fun little idea that will probably put me on a watch list. But still. Like, there's a lot of, like, possibilities there when you have, like, a non-lethal, because especially non-lethal damage doesn't necessarily have to be rendered on the HUD. Like, we could certainly have a HUD display of how much non-lethal damage you've had, but if you don't know how much non-lethal damage you've taken, you're constantly like, you have to more or less understand that potentially the next non-lethal attack will put you into a down state. Won't kill you, it'll just knock you out. Which is a really interesting kind of combat. There's a variety of things that'll do non-lethal damage, and monk characters, for instance, can specifically choose to do only non-lethal damage with their fists, for instance. In fact, by writ, fists ordinarily are non-lethal damage, like, all the time, so a Minecraft character punching you should just knock you out, not kill you. But, bleh. Which then makes actually getting a weapon on day 1 even more important. Because you'll need it to get food and defend yourself and such. All sorts. Certain creature types are also immune to non-lethal damage. Undead and constructs, most notably. So, yeah. Let's see. Nauseated, experiencing stomach distress. Oh, the particles I can put on that. Nauseated creatures are unable to attack, cast spells, concentrate on spells, or do anything else requiring attention. The only action a character can take is a single move action per turn. In that case, we would probably prevent right and left clicks, and then more or less the only thing you can do is move. But, yeah. Invisible, straightforward. Incorporeal, also good. Let's see, flat-footed is not one we can do without implementing dexterity, but it would just be like an attribute modifier that reduces your armor total value, essentially. That one's extremely situational though, so that would be a status effect that would have to be applied based on the relative position of things around you which we can deem to be hostile. Bit tricky, that one. But if we did implement that, the Velociraptors, whose group AI code specifically causes them to surround their targets, would be horrifying. Fascinated is another thing that needs complex data. Exhaustion would be an interesting concept for a Minecraft character. You spend pretty much your whole Minecraft life sprinting everywhere at every opportunity. You must be exhausted, surely. Deafened is an effect that'll be coming in. It does a lot of things, but the chief among it is it turns off sound events. So if you have the deafened effect client side, you cannot hear anything. It's not usually permanent, but yeah. Dazzled we've implemented. Dead is straightforward. Dazed, disgust, cowering, can take no actions. Takes -2 penalty to armor class and loses dexterity bonus, if any. This is fairly straightforward to do. The trick is just making it look distinctly different from anything else that makes you stop doing anything. Confused is a lot of fun, but it's really hard to act. Basically, to do that, we would need its own. We would need an AI handler for a player to just like take over every now and then. It's like they could decide what to do, but then the AI handler decides what they actually do. That sort of thing. And then there's ability drained and ability damaged. Again, that requires us actually codifying abilities, which we'll probably have to do at some point, but not right now. Anyways, that is all I have for you all tonight. Hope you've enjoyed it at the very least. We didn't get a whole ton done, so yeah. When do you think you'll be adding the patrons like the Kieran in the 1.16 version? I have a lot more stuff to do before I can get to that stage. The magic system, for instance, is present but not populated and such, and there's no concept of what a pact is. I can add the entities, but I won't have the dimensions that they appear in, and I won't have any of the world gen and such, so yeah, that's a ways off. But I do still have the models, and they will still be compatible with 1.16, so there is that. Anyways, that's all I got for tonight. Hope you've all enjoyed. My next stream should be Thursday, but since that's the day when I get my first COVID-19 vaccination, I might be out of action, so keep an eye on Twitter for that. Then on Saturday, we should, all things considered, have the carousel with the patrons, playing some random games at 9, and we'll be back for more of this on Tuesday. Meanwhile, keep an eye out on Twitter for any announcements of bonus streams like Comblock Home, and keep an eye out on youtube.com/remarkcomic for any videos. Meanwhile, everything I do is powered by you. This includes taking my medication, by the by, over at patreon.com/lion. Hope you've all enjoyed. I'll catch you all ever next time. I'm amazing and the new feature looks good.